Question orale, the honourable member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, members of the government said earlier today in the House that I had known for 2 years about the specific threat that a PRC diplomat in Toronto was gathering information to target my family. That is false. I'll categorically state again for the record that the defensive briefing of 2 years ago in June of 2021 was general in nature. It did not contain any information about the specific threat that a PRC diplomat in Toronto, Mr. Wei Zhou, was targeting my family. Will the Prime Minister correct the record to stop the spread of this misinformation?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I want to assure my colleague opposite that we take the concerns that he has expressed and that have been expressed in public with regards to foreign interference and the targeting of himself and his family extremely seriously, which is why we will continue to work with him, provide him with briefings. I would also point out, Mr. Speaker, that earlier today we tabled the 2022 CSIS report, wherein it states, among other things, that CSIS provided briefings to 49 federal parliamentarians, and by working with everybody, we can protect our democratic institutions.
I want to remind the honourable members. The honourable member, well, I'm not going to say honourable member. Did he want to withdraw that, please? Do you want to withdraw that? No. Order. Order. What's his writing? Grand Prairie, Mackenzie. That you do not respect the chair. The chair will not recognize you while you're in this House. The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills, please continue.
Mr. Speaker, I've just been informed by the National...
Withdraw and apologize. The chair will not recognize you for the next, well, no, until you do, indefinitely. The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-Clairem. Mr. Speaker, it's a dark day for democracy. Rarely have we seen a political party fall so far so fast. A member of this House is the victim of intimidation from Beijing, and the members for Winnipeg North and Kingston and the Islands, on behalf of this government, on behalf of this Prime Minister, have continued the trend and are now conspiring against our Conservative colleague. They're spreading disinformation, and they should be ashamed. Why are they defending Beijing instead of a Canadian member of Parliament? When will the Prime Minister finally apologize for the unconscionable attitude of his political party? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, I would like to reassure my colleague that we share the concerns of the member for Wellington Halton Hills, and that is why we offered him a briefing. CSIS delivered that briefing. We're going to continue to offer him all the support he needs, and to all members who work in this House of Commons to protect our democratic institutions. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-Clairem. Disinformation, disinformation, disinformation. The member for Wellington Halton Hills learned today that the memo from CSIS, which stated that he was clearly a victim of intimidation by a diplomat in the consulate in Toronto, had been transferred to just about everyone on the Liberal side. And they did nothing. They didn't expel any diplomat, and they continue to spread disinformation. When will they finally apologize, Mr. Speaker? They should be ashamed to even attend their convention. The Honourable Minister of Public Safety, of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I understand the frustration, the fear on the part of our colleague, and the fact that he and his family were targeted by the Beijing government. And that is why we will always say that any form of foreign interference is unacceptable. Now, that is why my deputy minister today summoned the Chinese ambassador. And, Mr. Speaker, if I may continue to speak without my colleague interrupting me, if I may continue to express myself, Mr. Speaker, what we also said.
Mr. Speaker, today 2 high-ranking senior Liberals entered this House claiming that the member for Wellington Halton Hills was briefed 2 years ago about the threatening allegations and simply ignored it. Didn't talk to colleagues, didn't talk to his family in Canada or abroad. This is outrageous, inexcusable, but most importantly, unbelievable. To the Public Safety Minister, Canadians are watching you, sir, and demand an answer. When were you first briefed?
I want to remind the honourable members, in order to ask a question, please do not ask directly or speak directly to each other, but speak through the chair. The Honourable Public Safety Minister.
Mr. Speaker, first I would like to reiterate that we do take the concerns that have been expressed by the member for Wellington Halton Hills very seriously. That's why as soon as we were informed about this issue, which was Monday of earlier this week, we reached out to him directly. We offered a briefing to him. We made sure that that briefing happened, and we will continue to work with him and all members to make sure that we can uphold our democracy.
The Honourable Member for Brantford-Brant.
Mr. Speaker, enough of the political spin. An attack on one member is an attack on this entire House. Canadians have questions. It's time for the Public Safety Minister to start answering them honestly and directly. When was this minister made aware that an agent of Beijing's Toronto office was intimidating a sitting member of this House?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, might I suggest that my colleague across the way listen carefully to an answer that I've given now on multiple occasions. As I said, I was informed on Monday of this week with regards to the specific issue pertaining to the member for Wellington Halton Hills, and shortly thereafter I reached out to that member. I wanted to make sure that he knew that he would have my support, that he would have our government's support, because we in fact do care for his security, for his family's security. This is not a partisan issue, and making scandalous allegations doesn't advance the debate around national security. We need to work together to protect our democracy. That's what we're committed to doing.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, the minister had just said that this is not a partisan issue, but this government made it one. This morning, 2 parliamentary secretaries who were high-ranking said in this House that the member for Wellington Halton Hills knew for 2 years that the Beijing government had targeted him and his family. Earlier, the member just said that this was not true. Mr. Speaker, is there anyone on the other side who have a sense of honor and dignity, and will they apologize? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, yes, of course. That is why the government contacted the member for Wellington Halton Hills to express our support for him and his family. We are supporting him, and not only him, but all members in this House. We have to work together in good faith to protect our democratic institutions. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, this is outrageous. The victim here is the member for Wellington Halton Hills, and the attacker is the Liberal government this morning. Instead of defending the member, they are attacking him. That's the reality. That's what happened this morning, not once but twice, both by parliamentary secretaries. So I am calling on all the ministers of this government, and I know them. I know that they are honourable, and I know they're people of dignity. So which one is going to stand up to apologize to the member for Wellington Halton Hills? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, this government will always defend the rights of members of Parliament to do their work safely with no foreign interference, and that is why we put in place mechanisms and powers to do so. That is why we strengthened our level of transparency with the creation of NSICOP to work in a cross-party fashion, because we need to work together to protect our democratic institutions.
St. Albert. Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola.
In today's debate, two members of the Liberal government have claimed that the member for Wellington Halton Hills had known for 2 years that his family was being targeted by Beijing operatives on Canadian soil. That is categorically false, Mr. Speaker. Those members should be ashamed for their victim blaming and trying to shift responsibility away from the Prime Minister, who has not stood up for Canada and for Canadians. If the Prime Minister won't expel these Liberals from his own caucus for promoting conspiracy theories and disinformation, will he very least expel these communist operatives who are still in Canada, Mr. Speaker? Will they?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I have to rise in my place, because I think it's important for us to take a step back and recognize right now that as Russia and China, yes, target this House and all democratic places everywhere, there is absolutely no question that this government, and I would say no government in the history of Canada, that would see a threat against any parliamentarian as anything other than a threat against every single person in this House. The assertion that anything else is the case is ridiculous. All of us stand firm and resolute against the threat to democracy. It is absolutely a threat against us all, and we will rise to the hour every time.
The Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Liberals have not only failed to do anything about the fact that a diplomat from Beijing has targeted a member of Parliament and his family because of how he voted in the House of Commons. Today, they've stooped to a disgusting new low. The Liberal MPs from Kingston and the Islands and Winnipeg North have both stood in this House to imply that it is the MP for Wellington Halton Hills who himself is to blame for the government's inaction. Will the Prime Minister rise in his place and apologize for these despicable false claims coming from these Liberal MPs?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, what we can agree on, unequivocally, is that it is disgusting
The Honourable Government House Leader, please continue.
Mr. Speaker, what we can agree on unequivocally is that a targeting of a member of Parliament's family is an act beyond anything we can imagine. Every single one of us have dedicated our lives to democracy. We have seen ourselves...
Okay. I've gotten up twice already. The third time I'm getting up. Whoever's next from that party is going to go to the end, and we're going to start scrambling things. Not scrambling, exchanging. It's going to go to the back end of the line, and we'll let the next person who's last come in her place. So I'm going to ask everyone to be quiet and be respectful, ask questions quietly, and hear answers quietly as well. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know how many members of this chamber have been named and targeted by Russia. That number is high. I don't know how many members have been targeted by other foreign powers, but I do know this, that there are forces right now that would see democracy piled under the dirt, that would attack our democracy, and that we need to stand shoulder to shoulder, as we do with the member for Wellington.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Échemins-Lévis. I'm ready.
Liberal MP from Winnipeg North said that the member from Wellington Halton Hills has known about the threats against him for 2 years. That is categorically false. The Liberal MP from Kingston and the Islands said that the MP for Wellington Halton Hills was briefed on these specific threats 2 years ago. This is categorically false. Liberals are now targeting the MP who himself has been targeted by Beijing. So when will the Prime Minister get up and apologize for these Liberal MPs spreading these outright lies?
honourable member for Chilliwack Hope withdraw his statement. Very good. Let me consult with the table and see exactly what we can do about that. Order. That's not allowed in the House. It's not parliamentary. So I'm going to give the honourable member one more chance, and then we'll move on, and we're not going to have many people left to ask questions. The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope, will he withdraw?
Mr. Speaker, I stand by what I said.
Good. The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope will not be recognized by the chair until he withdraws.